Welcome back. In previous stories, we've explored the cruelty of the Devshirme system through the fate of the boys who were taken. But today, we turn to a different page of that same tragedy. We will not follow the victim, but will instead journey with the pain of the one left behind. This is the story of the Ottoman blood tax, but told from the perspective of an older brother who spent his life searching for the little brother who was stolen from him. In my memory, before the world bled out its color, we were two brothers, Milos and I. Our lives were carved from the small glories of the mountains, the shock of cold stream water, the rough bark of an old oak, the shared warmth of a single cloak against the evening chill. He was 10, and his laughter was the only currency I ever cared for. Then the world grew larger, and its shadow fell upon us. The Sultan's collectors. They moved not like men, but like a plague on horseback, their fine silks a mockery of our simple wool. I remember the silence first, a heavy blanket that smothered the village. Then the inspection. They did not see boys, they saw livestock. They looked at Milos and pried his mouth open to check his teeth. They felt the bones in his arms and legs, searching for the strength they could steal and corrupt. He was perfect, unblemished, a fine specimen. When their gloved hand pointed at him, our mother became a storm of grief, a sound I had never heard from her before. I fought. Gods, how I fought! I was 14, all sharp bones and useless fury. I was thrown into the dirt, the taste of blood and dust in my mouth. The last thing I saw was my brother's face, pale with a terror so pure it has been burned behind my eyes ever since. As they dragged him away, I screamed a promise, a foolish, childish oath that became the core of my life. Milos, I will find you. I will bring you home. I swear it. As my life became a singular, burning obsession, his was being systematically unmade. I can only imagine the horrors of that journey, pieced together from the whispers of other grieving fathers I met on the road. The long march was a filter for the weak. Boys who fell behind were not helped. They were left as offerings to the cold, or to the wolves that shadowed the caravans. I heard stories of the flux, a bloody sickness that emptied a child's life into the frozen mud. I imagined Milos, cold and hungry, chained to other weeping boys, learning the first brutal lesson of his new life. Your pain does not matter. And then the palace. I try not to picture the true darkness of it. They didn't just give him a new name. They scoured the old one from his soul. They beat the mother tongue from his lips, punishing any slip with a stinging cane or days of isolation. They took his faith and replaced it. They took his body and made it an object. I would lie awake in roadside inns, haunted by the thought of what they might have done to him, to make him compliant, to make him useful. In the first years of my search, I learned what it meant to be chosen. I heard whispers in the marketplaces of the Ichoglani, the interior boys. I heard of the Agas, the powerful eunuchs who ruled the inner palace with absolute authority. Men who were once boys like my brother, but who had been carved and cut to serve, their humanity sacrificed for a position of power in a gilded cage. For years, my greatest fear was that this was Milos's fate, that to find him, I would have to look upon a face that was his, but attached to a body made into something else entirely. Worse still were the quiet, venomous rumors about the boys who were too beautiful. The ones chosen not for the army or the state, but for the private, silent chambers of powerful men. They were called pages, but they were pets. Dressed in silks, taught to play the lute, their only purpose to be pleasing. The thought that my brother's gentle face might have condemned him to that life, it was a poison that fueled my journey and corroded my soul. I had to find him before the palace consumed what was left of him. My promise became my curse. For 10 years, it was the chain that dragged me forward. I left our broken home and followed the sun. I worked on merchant ships, my hands bleeding from the ropes. I guarded caravans, learning to sleep with one eye open. I followed every false rumor, chased every ghost. In a tavern in Anatolia, a man swore he saw a new recruit with my brother's eyes. It was a dead end. In a port city, a grieving mother told me her son had been taken years ago, and she advised me to forget, to let the ghost rest. But I could not. The promise I screamed into the dust had become my only faith. My own life had ceased to matter. It was merely the vessel for this quest. I grew hard, weathered, and the boy I had been died, just as surely as the boy Milos had been. After a decade of pilgrimage, I found myself inside the palace walls, not as a rescuer, but as a laborer, my back aching and my hands raw. The squalor of my life was a stark contrast to the obscene beauty around me. And then, one evening, I saw him. He was walking from the Sultan's private gardens, part of a small, elegant procession. He was dressed in crimson silk that seemed to drink the torchlight. He was no longer a boy. He was a vision of perfection, his every movement a study in practiced grace that spoke of endless, brutal correction. Other men, powerful men, looked at him with a mixture of admiration and hunger. His face had sharpened, losing the softness of childhood. But the eyes were his. He was playing a lute, the music so heartbreakingly beautiful that it silenced the courtyard. But his face was a mask of serene emptiness. My heart hammered against my ribs, a wild animal in a cage of bone. It was him. My quest was over. I risked everything for a single moment. I cornered him in a shadowed archway, away from the guards. I grabbed his silk-clad arm, and for a second I felt the familiar bone structure beneath. "Milos!" I gasped, the name feeling foreign and wholly on my tongue. "It's me, Elian, your brother. I'm here. I told you I would find you." He looked at my dirt-stained clothes, my rough hands, my desperate, weathered face, and there was no recognition. There was only the cold, panicked terror of a prince accosted by a madman. He wrenched his arm from my grasp. "That name is a corpse," he hissed, his voice a flawless, cultured whisper that was not his own. "Do not speak it here. I am Kadir." He looked at me, and his eyes held not just fear, but contempt. Contempt for me, for the mud on my boots, for the world of suffering he had escaped. "You reek of the world outside. Leave this place," he said, his voice like ice. "The boy you are looking for is dead. I watched him die." He turned and walked away, melting back into the perfumed air of the palace, his crimson silks silent. He didn't look back. The promise was not broken by an enemy. It was broken by the brother I had come to save. I left the city that day, my 10-year quest ending not in a reunion, but in an execution. The boy I had promised to save didn't exist anymore. The promise itself was a ghost I had been chasing. I was finally, truly alone. That night, in a chamber filled with luxuries I could not imagine, Kadir sat alone. He dismissed his servants. The lute lay beside him, silent. He looked out at the lights of the city that owned him, his face an unreadable sculpture. Then, slowly, his hand moved to a small hidden pouch on his sash. He took out a single, smooth, gray river stone. the kind a boy might skip across a mountain stream. He stared at it. His perfect, serene mask cracked for just a moment, and in the gilded, silent cage he had paid for with his own soul, he closed his fist around the stone, and a single, hot tear, a final betrayal to the boy he once was, traced a path down his cheek. The story has come to an end. If it left a powerful impression on you, please consider supporting the channel with a like and subscription. It's the best way to ensure more stories like this can continue to be told. Thank you.